This video looks at creating geometric graphics from scratch without the use of live trace or a template. What we're going to do is we're going to create a graphic like this. So it uses a number of key elements, rectangles, curves and circles, and fills and strokes. So to do this, we're going to create a new document. We'll go for an A4 landscape. I'm just going to move that over a bit so we can see it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a rectangle. We want to make sure that there's no fill, so we'll move the fill tile to the foreground and select none from the swatch, and we'll then select stroke by clicking on it, bring that to the foreground, and we'll give that a weight of about 3 points. So if I draw a rectangle, we want to add some control points. So if we go add anchor point underneath the pen tool, and we'll add a point on the bottom line and add a point on the right hand side. We can then remove or delete an anchor point because we don't need this corner anymore. Then that gives us a diagonal. What we want to do now is we want to change this straight line into a curve. The way we do that is by looking under the pen tool again, and this time selecting Convert Anchor Point tool. So if I select, click and drag this bottom anchor point, you can see the way by clicking and dragging we get a couple of handles that come out, and this is now called a Bezier curve. If I want to transform this, so I'll constrain it so that it's vertical, I can hold the shift key and I can let go. Okay, so this is a tangential curve, so there's a transition of 180 degrees between this side of the curve and the other side. If we want to break the associativity so it's not a tangential curve, then we can use the Convert Anchor Point tool again to select and drag that point. This is no longer a tangential curve. Okay. If we want to change this again so that it goes back to a straight line, what we can do is we can take the control point and move that back, or the handle, take the handle and move that back into the control point. Okay, so this is now a straight line. If we go to the white arrow, we can tell that it's a straight line because if we select a point and move it, it's going to behave like that, as opposed to that, where it's showing us that it's a curve. Okay, the next element that we need to do is we need to draw the circles. So if I go to the ellipse tool, I'm going to click and drag a circle. If I hold the shift key, that's going to restrict or constrain the shape to a circle rather than an ellipse. So I can let go. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to make a bigger circle outside. So if I go to the Scale tool, the default for the origin is going to be in the centre of the shape. So if I position the cursor at a point outside of the circle, up 45 degrees, click and drag. Okay, so if I again hold the shift key, that's going to constrain it to a circle. And this time, if I hold the Alt key, then it's going to make a copy. Okay. Last of all, we need an extra circle, which will be our highlight. So I'm going to draw another circle, again holding the Shift key. Okay, so it just remains for me to colour these different elements. So I'm going to select the outside rectangle, remove the stroke, click on the fill so that comes to the foreground so that we tell it we want to work on it. Set that to black. We can select the outer circle, we'll make that about 8 point. The inner circle, we don't want the stroke, so move that to the foreground and remove that particular feature. Then click on the fill to bring it to the foreground. I'm going to set that to black. We can select the highlight of the eye. So again, we don't want a stroke on that, but we want this to be white. So select white as a fill. I can then drag a box around these elements and move them towards the eye. And then there we have our first component for the logo.